Studios on India Road, this is the news. But first, the headlines. Some of the country's top executives representing public and private institutions who were recently awarded for paying tax on time react positively to the development. Job well done and happily back home. A contingent of Gambian security forces returned to the country after completing their tour of duty in Darfur, Sudan. North Korea intensifies with war rhetorics again, with another bluster about its nuclear weapons capability, but the announcement has triggered nervous glances in Western capitals. And tens of thousands of desperate migrants jostle for space in crowded tent settlements on the Serbia-Macedonia border, as the rest of the Balkans close their borders to ward off the flow of migrants into Europe. Well, now, viewers, these are other stories coming ahead in the next hour. I'm your presenter, TENENG GITTEH. Welcome back. Top echelons of the country's public and private institutions have given their positive reaction following the recent tax-compliant awards by the Gambia Revenue Authority. Up to 10 public institutions have been singled out for paying tax on time. Ibrahim Balde has more on that story.
The celebrated American singer Steve Earle once remarked that debt and taxes are the only things that are inevitable. When the Gambia Revenue Authority recently awarded public and private institutions that are tax compliant, we decided to follow up with some of these institutions in a bid to capture their reactions. Playing a strategic role in the country's economy, the Gambia Ports Authority has the potential to do more as far as complementing national development endeavors are concerned. Taking advantage of the peace and political stability in the country, GPA is poised to deliver and discharge its obligations as required by law. So I wanted to know how the managing director felt after the tax compliant award was conferred on his institution by the Gambia Revenue Authority.
On tax compliance, it is an obligation that as an institution, a parastation and a state-owned institution for that matter, that we oblige to and pay our tax on time. And regarding the award, I am very, very happy, and on behalf of the board and management and staff, we would like to express our gratitude to GRA for recognizing our efforts in paying our tax on time.
There are plans in the pipeline to expand the scope and size of the ports. This infrastructural project is expected to cut down the increasing demand for services. Sanyang says he's quite impressed with the government's quest to invest in capital-intensive projects.
We are trying to avoid congestion, and this is why we are expanding. If you look around the head office, on your left, you will see that we are expanding on Port Expansion project, and that is another terminal of 18,000 square meters is being built. That is going to ease the congestion that you are seeing. So it's one step in terms of development that we are doing. And then we have also bought a lot of cargo handling equipment as we speak. Some of them arrive, and then we have one more tugmaster that is expected in 2 weeks' time. But all the other have already arrived. We have 2 new restackers additional to the existing fleet, and then we bought 4 new tugmasters.
Having been in the business for 22 years, QCell Group is determined and is not relenting in its quest to serve the Gambian people. This is the second time in a row for the QCell Group to receive this tax compliant award.
First of all, we are really honored and pleased and happy to win this prestigious award from the Gambia Revenue Authority 2 years in a row. But I would like to first of all want to thank the government of the Gambia through His Excellency the President for availing us the opportunity, us local investors, to contribute our quota to national development. I would like to take this opportunity to thank him and his government, and also to our valued customers for giving us the opportunity, to be able to win this award today.
Paying tax tax has always been part and parcel of Mohamed Jah's long-cherished dream since his early foray in business.
When I started my business career 22 years ago, I had 3 goals in my mind and objectives, as I can say. One is to make sure that I pay salaries to my employees on time. The second goal is to make sure that I pay all my taxes on time. And the third goal is to bring in products and services to the Gambian people commensurate to world standard. And since I started my business, I have been adhering to these 3 principles. Yes, it's true, it's not easy to pay tax, but it's an obligation.
By rewarding institutions that are tax compliant is another way of encouraging individuals and institutions to always pay tax as required by law, since there is nowhere in the world where tax is not paid. Ibrahima Balde, GRTS News.
Members of the GAMCOI 18, numbering 190 men and women, have returned to the country after completing a year-long peacekeeping duties in Darfur, Sudan. The returnees were met on arrival by senior members of the Gambia Armed Forces, including the Deputy Chief of Defense Staff. Our farmer Kanye was at the Banjul International Airport and he prepared this news report.
To go back, raise your hand. You get on board. Are we good to go? Are we good to go? That's better.
They landed at the Banjul International Airport at 2300 hours. As their predecessors, they also received similar welcome by the general officers of the Gambia Armed Forces.
An exemplary life. In other words, they performed creditably well during the tour during Darfur. You've cemented the relations, but equally doing exceptionally well. Records indicates that your performance was exemplary. We've not received any adverse report regarding any of the members of this contingent, and that is commendable. The command deemed it absolutely necessary to welcome each and every one of you back safely to the Gambia. On behalf of the Chief of Defense Staff, Lieutenant General Usman Baji, and by extension, and most importantly, on behalf of His Excellency, the President of this great country, His Excellency, SAC, Professor Alhaji Dr. Yaya A.J.J. Jammeh, Babili Mansa, and on behalf of the general officers and men of the Gambia Armed Forces, I use this occasion to say welcome to the Gambia.
Darfur has always been a success ground for the personnel of the Gambia Armed Forces. For that reason, the Army has jealously guided this outstanding achievement, which has been a source of admiration to other African armies.
Gambia contingent, definitely, we are very much committed to our work. Whatsoever task we are assigned, we do it as expected, and we are very professional in the way we do. If you compare us to other countries, I am advising everybody, whatsoever method you can do, or whatsoever contribution you can do to make sure that there is peace maintained is important, because we have seen what lack of peace can do in other countries. So this is a message that I have for everybody.
I exchange ideas with people, experience more, saw a lot of things that I didn't experience. So I'm thanking God.
The Gambia Army has been very active in the maintenance of territorial and regional peace. A case in point is the Darfur mission, which since inception had and continues to expose most of its personnel to foreign combat operations.
Are you good to go?
We have witnessed the departure of GAMCOI 19 yesterday, and today we witnessed the arrival of GAMCOI 18. This is a contingent of the Gambia that have been in Darfur for a period of 1 year, and they have been trying to establish and maintain peace in that troubled region. Reporting for the news, I am Famarakani.
Institutions have been taking turns to present their institution's activity report and audited financial statements to the members of the Joint Public Accounts and Public Enterprises Committees. Our Buba SMCC was at the National Assembly chambers in Banjul and tells us more about the latest sessions.
Although the Office of the Ombudsman has been found 90% GPPA compliant, deputies raised concerns over certain issues regarding the activities of the institution, which include loan scheme, surplus, and depreciation of vehicles for the year under review. Honorable Lamin Keba Jammeh of Ilyasa was the first to take the floor and began by commending the institution for their compliant status, and then came up with following questions and queries.
I have seen a loan interest on personal loan, $8,275. I was wondering, where is the principal? If there is a loan and it attracts interest, there should be a principal to that principal. My other point, Honorable Chair, would be on the amount they spent on the vehicle for that particular year. $1.5 million was spent on vehicles in 2014, and it is directly accounted for that particular year.
If you look at the financial statement on page 10, represented by the staff debt balance of 131,000. That is the cumulative, that includes all loans that is owed to staff.
This was immediately followed by question and answer, and the officials of the Ombudsman have taken note of the concerns raised by the deputies.
The gross abuse of workers happens more in the private sector than the public sector. I think there is a real need for the mandate of the Ombudsman to be expanded for them to cover the private sector.
Due to the fact that we do not have the mandate to investigate these cases, they are not within our jurisdiction. We decided to refer them to the appropriate bodies.
The issue of sensitization was also addressed and considered critical in the awareness campaign of the masses.
Probably people working, not everybody knows that there's an ombudsman operating. So if they can go further to create more awareness for workers to know that the functions of ombudsman.
We even went far at offices level to have clinics where you will go to an institution and try to sensitize them on the role and functions of the ombudsman. So we have also opened a website. We've created a website just for the sake of sensitizing the general public and even those beyond the Gambia on our roles and functions.
We are trying to establish more and more offices so that people will be aware of our existence and then be able to come back to us at any time they have any problems so that we'll be able to help them solve the problems. We cannot solve all, but we do our best to make sure that most of the problems that are given to us are solved.
The primary role of the Office of the Ombudsman is to be an independent body responsible for the complaints of maladministration, mismanagement, discrimination, injustice, corruption, abuse of power, and unfair treatment of any person by a public officer in the exercise of official duties. Buba SMCC, GRTS.
Salt mining is a lucrative industry in the Gambia with women and as a main source of production. Majority of them are organized in small groups dotted around the country. The various members recently met for the 3rd National Conference of National Association for Salt Producers in Fonyi Kansala of Buyam. Babuka Sengor has more on that story in this report.
This equipment, called salt iodization machine, is expected to boost the production and processing of this vital ingredient in the country. The two machines have a combined worth of over $2 million, and it comes courtesy of UNICEF Banjul office. The presentation was presided by the nationwide conference of association members, this being the 3rd time. The association has played an important role in the consumption of iodized salt in the Gambia, which, according to experts, has increased to 76%.
Since we started having this knapsack in position, I think statistics is showing that, we are moving from 7% about 10 years ago, gone to 22%, now we've gone to 33%, and now the last demographic and health survey was showing at the, salt consumption at household level is at 76%, which I think is very encouraging. All of this cannot be achieved without salt being produced, without them going to Senegal and bringing iodized salt, and I think this had made it possible, and we should say thank you to the NASPAT, and I think this is why I'm really happy in seeing this organization.
Modern Jai is the Director of National Health and Promotion Services at the Ministry of Health and Social Welfare. He spoke of his office's desire to raise awareness of the importance of the consumption of iodized salt in the country.
Our role is to change behaviors. Our role is also to promote the consumption of iodized. And I think we have been working very closely with NANA, and that's why NANA also has a communication team, and that communication team is working very, very closely with the ministry to ensure that the communities are aware. We are also trying to explore the opportunities of using all existing available communication channels and strategies, and I think we have been using that, and we also need to continue to strengthen these particular strategies. We are using the use of print media, the use of electronic media, as well as the use of traditional media. We are involving the traditional communicators, the community drama groups, at all levels in this country.
Stanley Muazi, UNICEF representative at the forum, acknowledged the importance of salt iodization. He therefore hailed the Ministry of Health and NANA for fulfilling their mandates in ensuring majority of Gambians consume iodized salt. He called on member associations to take up the opportunity created for them at a short time. National Nutrition Agency and the Ministry of Health and Social Welfare have been instrumental in the production of fresh iodized salt to ensure every household in the Gambia consume the right salt for better health, especially among women and children. For GRTS News, this is Babukar Sengon.
The American International University has held its fourth white coat ceremony, welcoming new students who are poised to pursue medical studies at the reputable university. The newly inducted students will follow in the footsteps of the previous aspiring medical practitioners who have enrolled at the university. Ibrahim Jallo reports.
Batch of students under the Medical School of the American International University, AIU, in the Gambia, to have finally handed and wore the white coat, being the fourth ceremony dedicated to the future serving doctors and nurses. The Dean of the AIU Medical School, Dr. Kanti Solanki, said the day marked the beginning of a demanding journey. He, however, urged would-be doctors and nurses to exercise discipline and patience as required by all health workers. The president of the university, Dinesh Sukla, said his institution has registered tremendous strides in creating a reputable university that attracts students from the Gambia and beyond. He also noted that the university has fulfilled its obligation to the country since its establishment 5 years ago.
We have been able to achieve our social responsibilities to the country, who has given us this opportunity. We have the responsibility of educating 10% of our students who are Gambians free of charge. And we have met and exceeded that capacity. And I'm very happy to tell you that we will continue even in future to do so.
The occasion was graced by the Minister of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology, Dr. Abubakar Senghor, who reminded the aspiring doctors and nurses of behaviors and relationships that underpin the public trust in them.
On behalf of the Ministry of Higher Education and on my own behalf, I wish to congratulate the students on arriving at this milestone in your career. I have no doubt that you must have worked hard to achieve your goals of entering the medical school. As each of you walk across this stage today to receive your white coat, your journey in medical or in medicine will begin, or has begun today. In the words of Sir William Osler, the practice of medicine is an art, not a trade, a calling, not a business.
The minister and delegation were earlier taken on a tour of an ultra-modern building which when completed will house the American International University.
So this is the second time we are being invited. When the foundation was being laid, we came in, and now today what we have found is very impressive. They have gone very, very far. The structure is very solid, it's nature friendly, and there are so many other facilities that can be used by the university as a modern academic institution. So we are very impressed by the quality of work.
The multi-million-dollar project, according to university authorities, is expected to serve the institution for the foreseeable future. Ibrahim Jallo, GRTS News.
Celebrations marking International Women's Day took center stage on Tuesday with a string of activities across the country. While some are still observing the day differently while setting targets for women and girls in the Gambia. And for EcoBank, the idea is to prepare financial packages designed to cater for the education of selected female students in 2 secondary schools. Buba SMCC tells us more about that.
As the world celebrates the International Women's Day commemoration, institutions are marking the day with renewed efforts to partake in the advancement of the welfare of women and girls. One of these institutions is EcoBank Gambia Limited. The Pan-African Bank has placed particular interest on Section 5 of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, on gender equality, while aligning itself with subsection 5 of the United Nations SDGs on women and gender equality.
We are specifically aligned with subsection 5, which looks at ensuring women's full and effective participation and equal opportunities for leadership at all levels of decision-making in political, economic, and public life. At EcoBank, we place a high premium on women and on gender equality. As the largest Pan-African bank, we are conscious of the fact that we operate in a continent where women are more active economic agents than most places in the world.
The Director General of EcoBank Gambia, Josephine Anna Ankoma, further argues that many African women lack access to basic credit to smoothen gaps in working capital and fund investments, and for this reason, the financial institution deem it fitting to support women as valued segment of their customer base across the continent in which they operate.
Many women, however, still lack access to basic credit needed to smoothen gaps in working capital and fund investments in new equipment and technology. It is for these reasons that we consider women an especially valued segment of our customer base across the 36 African countries where we are present. We at EcoBank are answering the UN's clarion call and are indeed stepping it up for gender equality. In all the 36 countries where we operate, we have developed a new group-wide program aimed at further supporting gender equality both within the EcoBank group and the local communities where we serve.
The issue of scholarships for female students from upper basic school to higher education institution, including female member of staff of the bank, was received with joy, as some of the staff expressed gratitude for the initiative.
This shows the difference that EcoBank is the best and one of the leading banks in the Gambia. I mean, looking at this initiative, I think people should come up because most people tend to shy away or tend to run away from working for private institutions that they feel that they're not going to develop them and all that. But EcoBank is the difference, as we've seen for ourselves.
We're talking of profits here.
Yes.
This is bank.
Yes. Without the people outside, the bank will not make profit. Who give us the money? It's the customers outside, both old and young. They can bring in deposit today, tomorrow they withdraw. They can move it out to another bank, but we stay close to our customer. We manage them, make them happy, build up the relationship so that the funds will stay. And when that fund stays, that's where the line goes on profit. And when it's profit, we as a staff, as the MD mentioned, they make the EcoBankers happy and they will make the customers happy.
EcoBank Gambia Limited is resolved to promote this International Women's Day on the theme Planet 50-50 by 2030, Step It Up for Gender Equality. A slogan they describe as tangible, that everyone must diligently work to achieve this noble objective. Buba SMCC, GRTS.
Efforts to regenerate the Gambia's vast forest cover is gaining momentum, and one man leading those efforts is in the village of Jumokunda in Fonyi Kansala. Our Babuka Kama traveled to the village to meet the man championing the cause, to promote a greener Gambia. However, we'll bring you that news later on the news. For now, let's take a break, and when we return, we take a look at more news. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Tensions rising further on the Korean peninsula after Pyongyang claims it has nuclear warheads small enough to fit in ballistic missiles. North Korean media have pictures that show their leader visiting facilities said to be where the weapons are made. CNN's Paula Hancock has more.
Says this is a miniaturized nuclear warhead, a capability the world hoped North Korea would never reach, but some US officials feared they already had. The location and date of these photos is unknown. Intelligence agencies around the world will be poring over them to assess what it tells them about the true capability of the nation that just days ago threatened nuclear war on the US and South Korea. Is this a real nuclear weapon? What kind of missile is this? And is this a blueprint blurred out behind Kim Jong-un? South Korea casts doubt on its neighbour's claim, saying in a press release, the South Korea Defence Ministry assesses that North Korea at this point has not secured the capability of miniaturising a nuclear warhead. North Korea observers say Kim Jong-un's message is the same, whether the warhead is real or not.
This is part of the regime's long-term strategy to be accepted as a peer nuclear state. So they continue to pressure the international community and to show that they will not reverse course. This is a show of defiance.
Defiance it has shown all year. January 6th, it claimed to have successfully tested a hydrogen bomb, a claim that was widely discredited. February 7th, a satellite launch seen outside the country as a long-range missile test. Unprecedented UN sanctions against North Korea last week were met with Kim Jong-un calling for his nuclear weapons to be on standby. Joint military drills between the US and South Korea this week were met with threats of a preemptive nuclear strike.
While experts don't actually believe that Kim Jong-un would launch a nuclear strike, saying it would be suicidal, they do worry about a miscalculation by the young leader, or even an error by an individual soldier on either side of the border, which could quickly escalate while tensions are this high. Paula Hancock's CNN Seoul.
News agencies report that Macedonia has completely blocked off what it calls illegal migrants. It took no refugees at all from Greece on Tuesday. It follows similar moves by Slovenia, Croatia and Serbia, and the number of migrants moving into these countries has already slowed to a trickle, in recent weeks leaving thousands stranded at the Greek-Macedonia border. A sea of tents there. CNN has more.
The gateway to Athens, but for many refugees, it is no longer the doorway to Europe. Most mornings, ferries arrive from the islands. The tourists come off first. Then, the refugees. They carry bundles of blankets, rolled up tents in one arm, babies in the other. All with the same destination. Germany.
But there's been a lot of confusion and chaos here. Nobody's really sure where to go. There is a bus, but it really only brings people around the terminal. And there's no official here to tell them where to go next.
We do see a single UN official attempting to figure out who needs what. But many refugees simply set up temporary homes inside the port. But where there are few officials, there are plenty of volunteers. Sotiris Alexopoulos was laid off in the debt crisis, so he turned to helping the homeless and now refugees. But since the borders north have been closing, he says their work has changed.
Food, clothing, and medical care, and then we would see them off on their buses to the border.
But that's changed now.
That has changed now, and this change means that overnight we became a camp.
Greeks, heavily in debt, deep in unemployment, know what it's like to need a helping hand. Athens Yemen's residents stream in with donations. Nearby, Johnson & Johnson sponsors a children's play area that also serves as a waiting room for an on-site pediatrician and a children's dentist. But the days are hot, the wait is long, and the border is still not open.
This is a group of Afghan refugees demanding that Macedonia open up the border.
But their demands are not heard. As governments bicker over what to do, ordinary Greeks do what they can to help. The refugees wait, facing a choice: stay in Greece and hope to be legally accepted as an asylum seeker and relocated somewhere in Europe, or keep moving, whether illegal or not. Atika Schubert, CNN, at Piraeus Port in Athens, Greece.
With Europe preoccupied by refugees fleeing conflicts in the Middle East, little attention is paid to the civilians caught up in the fight in there. Many are in desperate need of medical attention, and some are found around Jordan, where a clinic run by the organization Doctors Without Borders is treating the severely injured. DWTV has more on that story.
Preparations before surgery. Dr. Mukhalad Saud marks the areas where he plans to make incisions. This patient from Yemen is suffering pain from burn scars left behind from a bomb attack. The plastic surgeons and orthopedic doctors in a special clinic treat long-term complications resulting from war injuries. This patient has burn wounds on his arms and back. It's difficult for him to move his arms. I'll try to give him some movement back. For Shadi, it's all he can hope for. I hope the operation will go well and I'll be able to live a normal life again. But first of all, Dr. Mukhalad and his team have to deal with a wounded child from Syria. There's little prospect of undergoing these highly specialized operations where the patients come from. Here, surgery is free of charge. We take in patients from Yemen, Iraq, Syria, and sometimes Palestine and Libya. They often have severe war wounds, which later develop complications. The surgeon is confronted with the horrors of war in the Middle East on a daily basis. Dr. Mukhalad comes from Iraq. He's deeply affected by the fate of his patients. I have to separate my emotions from my work in order to help these people. We empathize with them outside of the surgery room. They all have tragic stories. Imagine a bomb or a fire suddenly turning a perfectly healthy person into someone with disabilities. The young man from Yemen is out of surgery. Most of the patients have to undergo lengthy rehabilitation therapy. The clinic offers this also, but the waiting list is long. Muryad from Syria is learning to walk again. The 26-year-old has already had 3 operations and has been coming to the rehabilitation clinic for 7 months. First, I'm learning to walk. I'm not thinking too much about what comes after that. I'm doing it bit by bit. Muryad needs a lot of willpower and support from the therapists. They also offer their patients psychological support. The doctors also recognize the need for psychological support in the recovery from injury. We're dealing with 2 things. We're not only aiming to heal superficial wounds, but also the wounds on their soul. Shadi's operation went well. He can move his arms better. The doctors now have to deal with their next patient. The conflicts in the region won't let them rest.
We'll take our second break. When we return, we take a look at sports. You're watching GRTS News at 10. We'll be right back. Welcome back. And in sports, schools across the country are bracing for the Inter-Schools Athletics Championship for the upcoming weekend at the Independence Stadium. The inter-schools athletics competition is one of the country's top sporting events, and in the first of a series of features ahead of the championship, our sports reporter MS Diallo caught up with the chairman of the organizing committee, Alu Cham, and asked him about the expectations.
Championship. But first, take us through the heats.
Well, it has been 4 weeks competition successively, because we were in Farafenye, then Bansang, then Birkama, then here in Bakau. So each zone obviously consists of zone 3, which is not Bank LRR. They are the first to do their competitions. Then we went to zone 4, which comprises of schools from URR and CRR, right? Then zone 2, which is West Coast, of all the schools, some in the combos and the phonies. And the last zone here, which is zone 1, comprises of KM and BCC schools and some of West Coast, because we took Sukuta and we took Sukuta in here because they are closer to this zone.
What is the process involved in the qualifiers? How do you go about it? Or which athletes considered as qualified for the national champions?
You qualify when you take part in these events. Like we have hits, because we know that when you have a lot of schools, obviously you have to run hits. And the hits, the qualifying time is key. Positions may matter, but we are not counting positions as the sole criteria for qualification. A group, somebody from a group can come out 4th and have a better time than the other group. So that's how we go by things. So it is timing that qualifies the athlete. And each zone has 2 qualifiers. So it's a very, very tough competitions now. So that's for the finals, which is going to be on the 11th, 12th, and 13th. So you find out that zone 1 are so much of a disadvantage now. We have to work tightly today to make sure they have their qualifiers. So they know their qualifiers already, but officially we have to send the qualifiers with all the groupings together so that they see that they are qualified with the other schools. So they know the schools that they are competing with. So this is why it's too tough and it's too prompt as well. We were expecting our finals to be on the 18th, 19th, and 20th as previously scheduled. But then due to some circumstances beyond our control, we can't do anything about it. It was a notice that came to us that the date has been shifted for the 11th, 12th, and 13th, and we accepted.
Having taught the entire length and breadth of this country, conducted the hits in all the regions, and what is your impression ahead of the national championship?
Well, there has been lot of sensitization, because obviously sometimes you can be so much hard, people will not understand you, but through education, all right, sensitize them, and some of them don't even know the rules, and they call themselves PE teachers or whatever it is. And some of them have been so much supported by non-teachers, and that confuses them as well. So all those things, really, the job this year has been less for me, because I have less complaints, particularly here Region 1, really. It's less complaint, and my job was really easy.
Who are the top contenders?
It's tough to say. Very tough to say, to be very frank with you. As chairman of the competitions, I cannot pick out a school, because there can be surprises, and somebody can say, you had a favorite. I have no favorite here. So this is why every school participating here has a chance. And the schools that feeling that they are the top can be very careful. Very, very careful. Because you may lose your points when a school happens to come up, like an underdog school can snatch a point from that school. So it becomes a situation.
What sort of a championship are we expecting come on the 11th, 12th, and 13th?
My friend, tough one. I can tell it's going to be tough. Because every zone has surprises. Let me be very fair with you. I have seen surprise schools coming up. Schools I didn't expect that they may have so many qualifications, so many qualifiers. They are now competing. You see, and the number of schools have also increased. They have increased so much. I mean, these hits are 4 days. That tells you about the number of schools participating. And if it increases, if all the schools in this region, for example, happen to take part, trust me, it's going to take 5 days. We have to increase it to 5 days, because the number will exceed 50 to 60 schools, and it's going to be difficult to run hits of 60 within 4 days or 3 days. Yeah.
One good thing about the national championship is that athletics is coming back home, and on these very beautiful tracks. You must be excited, likewise every athletics fan and even athletes. What's the feeling like coming back to the stadium and running on these very beautiful athletics tracks?
I think the coming of the new tracks could be a factor that some of the schools have seen and they wanted to run, because most of the schools that didn't take part last year came up. So it could be an incentive to say, hey, I want to run on that track, so my school will go. So that's the whole thing about it. And schools are pressurizing their principals of schools to make sure they take part. So at least themselves are pressurizing their school heads. So you see that, it is very much excited,
Finally, what is your advice to schools, and what are the areas, because this is a dress rehearsal, I know there must be 1 or 2 things that didn't go well. What is your advice to schools, and what are some of the things you think should be improved from the national championship?
Truly, I have several points. Point 1 is no school is supposed to run an athlete who has sat through the exams, the grade 12 exams already. This is a rule. This is a rule that no athlete should run when they happen to sit through the last exams, grade 12. Even when they repeat your school, cheating is my issue. You cannot be a teacher and come and judge. So teachers should be patient and understand that the results are only final when we have no doubt.
Hello, Cham, they are speaking to our MS Jallo ahead of the weekend showdown in the Secondary School Athletics Championship. And now viewers receive our attention to the weather report courtesy of the Central Forecast Office.
The Gambia is endowed with a wonderful landscape full of baobab trees. Like its Cape Point in Bakau, it is one of the most exotic sceneries in the world. The baobab tree is a symbol of resilience, wisdom, and resourcefulness. For the baobab tree provides good food in times of hunger, rents its bark for medications, and its sap for glue. In the Gambia, there is a company like the baobab tree, 100% African and purely Gambian in all aspects, in know-how, design, value, capital, and management. That company is Elton. Elton, employing hundreds of Gambians and proudly associating itself with development in the Gambia. Elton, side by side with the Gambia.
Well, that was the weather forecast, and looks like a mildly warm day ahead. And with that, we come to the end of this news broadcast. But first, we give you the headlines. Job well done and happily back home, a contingent of Gambian security forces has returned to the country after completing their tour of duty in Darfur, Sudan. Some of the country's top executives representing public and private institutions who were recently awarded for paying tax on time are reacting positively to the development. North Korea has intensified its war rhetoric again with another bluster about its nuclear weapons capability, but the announcement has triggered nervous glances in Western capitals. And tens of thousands of desperate migrants have been jostling for space in crowded tent settlements on the Serbia-Macedonia border as the rest of the Balkans close their borders to ward off the flow of migrants into Europe. Well, viewers, that was all for this edition of the News Hour. Thanks for the pleasure of your company. Do stay with us, and I'm your presenter, TENENG GITTEH. Have a pleasant evening.